The projection room smells like burnt hair and copper pennies. Theodore Whitmore stands before the Edison projecting kinetoscope, his fingers trembling as he threads celluloid through metal teeth that gleamed like a predator's smile. The film stock feels wrong tonight, too warm, almost feverish. His left hand bears a fresh burn shaped exactly like the sprocket holes that feed through the machine. 3 projectionists have quit this theater in the past month, all citing the same nightmare. Figures in the films that weren't there during rehearsal, moving independently, watching back. The canister label reads, "The Great Train Robbery. 1903" with a notation in someone else's handwriting, "Do not screen after sunset." But the evening show is sold out, and Theodore needs this job desperately enough to ignore the way the film seems to writhe in his hands like something trying to escape its own skin. The Ghost Factory in January 1900, Thomas Edison's film factory, operates 18 hours daily, churning out 50-foot strips of celluloid that capture everything from sneezes to executions. The Black Maria studio in West Orange, New Jersey, rotates on a circular track to follow the Sooner tar paper shack that creaks like a ship in heavy seas. Inside, the air shimmers with chemical heat, mercury vapor from arc lamps, ether from film stock, and something else that veteran employees whisper about but never name. William Heiss, Edison's head cinematographer, adjusts the kinetograph for the 14th time today. His subject, vaudeville dancer Annabelle Whitford, has already performed her butterfly dance 7 times while the camera chews through reel after reel. Something in the footage keeps coming out wrong, strange artifacts. Temporal stutters where Annabelle seems to occupy impossible positions between frames. Her hand-painted silk wings catch the arc lamp light and throw prismatic shadows across the black walls. She's been dancing for 3 hours, her feet bleeding inside her slippers. But the contract specifies that she continues until Heiss declares the footage acceptable. This is the economics of early cinema. Bodies pushed past endurance, captured at 46 frames per second, preserved forever or destroyed immediately depending on commercial viability. The numbers read like fever dreams committed to ledgers. Edison's company produces 1,200 films between 1893 and 1903. A single kinetoscope costs $300 to manufacture but generates $50 per week in profitable locations. Within 1 year, 1,200 kinetoscopes operate across America, producing annual revenue of $3.1 million in an economy where the average worker earns $438 annually. The human cost calculates differently. Actors receive $5 per day regardless of injury. Projectionists working with explosive nitrate film stock experience a 12% annual mortality rate. Between 1900 and 1910, cinema fires kill 476 people in the United States alone. Most of them locked in theaters with exits chained shut to prevent customers from sneaking out without paying. Patent wars and pirate films. The first cease and desist letter arrives at Sigmund Lubin's Philadelphia studio on a Tuesday morning. Edison claims ownership of all motion picture technology through 34 separate patents, demanding $5,000 in back licensing fees plus immediate cessation of all production. Between 1897 and 1900, Edison initiates 289 lawsuits against competitors. His legal strategy functioning as economic warfare: bury opponents in court costs until they surrender or go bankrupt. Lubin makes a decision that will define his career. He keeps filming not Edison's subjects, but duplicate versions near identical copies, shot frame by frame to match Edison's catalog. It's cinematic piracy elevated to industrial scale. But something strange happens with these duplicates. When Lubin watches his copy of the execution of Cholgo's duplicated frame by frame from Edison's original, he experiences temporal vertigo, as though the film exists simultaneously in 2 moments, the original and the copy folded over each other like pages in a closed book. His assistant mentions nightmares, dreams of being trapped inside the films, living the same 45 seconds over and over. The Nickelodeon explosion. In June 1905, John P. Harris and Harry Davis opened the first permanent movie theater, the Nickelodeon, in a converted Pittsburgh storefront, charging 5 cents admission. Within 2 weeks, the Nickelodeon serves 7,000 customers daily. Within 3 years, America contains 8,000 Nickelodeon theaters, collectively serving 26 million customers, weekly more than 1/4 of the national population. This represents the fastest mass media adoption in human history. But speed creates casualties. Alina Kowalski, a ticket taker at the Nickelodeon, notices how certain audience members attend multiple shows per day, eyes glazed, watching the same 2-minute films 20 or 30 times in a row. Children who spend too long in the theater develop twitches that match the flicker rate 16 frames per second, a stuttering rhythm that infiltrates their nervous systems. One regular steel mill worker attends every show for 11 days straight. On day 12 he stands during a projection of the Great Train Robbery, pulls a revolver, and shoots at the outlaw on screen. The bullet passes through the sheet they reusing as a screen and lodges in the brick wall behind. The outlaw flickers unharmed. The worker collapses, sobbing, insisting the man on screen had been threatening him personally. The weight of representation. Burt Williams stands in the wings at the Grand Opera House in Chicago in 1903, watching a crew set up a biograph camera to film his performance. The highest paid black performer in America, Williams understands that he's about to be frozen in celluloid, his image replicated across a nation that simultaneously loves his comedy and denies his humanity. On stage, he performs in blackface, a black man painting himself black, exaggerating features for white audiences who won't accept black performers without the filter of minstrelsy. The camera will preserve this forever. Before cinema, performance was ephemeral. Each show existed in the moment, then disappeared. But film changes everything. Now, his blackface performance will exist permanently, reproducible infinitely, the same jokes and shuffling walk repeated forever without evolution or escape. Williams later writes in his journal, "The camera doesn't see me. It sees what they've trained it to see. I wonder if, 100 years from now, anyone will know who I actually was beneath the makeup." Between 1900 and 1915, American studios produce approximately 15,000 short films. Historians have identified exactly 47 films featuring black performers in non-caricatured roles, 0.3% of total production. Of 1,847 films featuring black performers, 1,743 to 94.4% involve minstrelsy, degradation, or service roles. The remaining 104 films disappear from archives at 3 times the rate of mainstream productions. Preservation is political, breaking reality apart. The first edit happens almost by accident. J. Stuart Blackton drops a film scene in 1906, watches it shatter, and reassembles the fragments in wrong order, creating a sequence where cause precedes effect. In the accidental reassembly, a man holds a lit cigarette, sits at a table, then enters the room while somehow already seated. The temporal paradox should render the footage nonsensical. Instead, it creates narrative tension, a mystery embedded in violated chronology. This discovery transforms cinema. Editing becomes the medium's foundational grammar, replacing simple recording with something more powerful. Edwin S. Porter's The Great Train Robbery demonstrates elliptical time, jumping across hours in single cuts, training viewers to accept temporal discontinuity as natural. But something else happens too. Editing gives filmmakers power to violate fundamental laws. In edited reality, death becomes reversible, time flows backward, people occupy multiple spaces simultaneously. Porter's assistant, a woman named Adelaide whose last name doesn't survive in records, leaves a note: "We're breaking reality apart and reassembling it incorrectly. Every cut is a violation." The films remember this. Sometimes I can feel them trying to restore themselves to chronological truth, fighting against our edits. She disappears from historical record 3 months later, though one uncorroborated police report mentions a woman found wandering Manhattan, claiming she'd been trapped between cuts. The first stars burn out. Florence Lawrence becomes the first movie star when Carl Lammle manufactures her death and resurrection in 1910. He plants newspaper stories reporting Lawrence's death in a streetcar accident. The nation mourns. Then, 1 week later, he reveals the truth: Lawrence is alive. The stories were fabrication. Public outrage transforms into fascination. Lawrence emerges, transformed, no longer merely an actress but a phenomenon, her private life now public property. Her private letters document growing unease. "Everywhere I go, people stare, not at me, exactly, but at some version of me they've constructed from publicity materials. I'm becoming fictional." When Lawrence begins drinking heavily, the studio leaks the information. When she suffers a nervous breakdown, photographers capture her departure for a sanitarium. When she attempts suicide in 1914, swallowing mercury-based poison, the incident appears in newspapers nationwide. Other early stars experience similar trajectories. Mary Pickford develops obsessive-compulsive behaviors, repeating gestures from her films in private life. Marion Leonard disappears from public life in 1920, leaving only a note: "I don't know who I am anymore. The real version is gone. Only the film version remains, and she's not real either." Lawrence's final interview, conducted in 1936. "We were the guinea pigs. They didn't know what fame would do to us, and we didn't know either. We thought recognition meant validation. We didn't understand it meant erasure, that the more people saw our images, the less we existed as actual people. She dies in 1938, alone, from an intentional overdose. But her films survive, and in them, Florence Lawrence still lives forever young, forever performing, forever trapped in 2-minute fragments while the projector grinds on. Conclusion: the birth of cinema was never innocent. It emerged from a crucible of exploitation, technological terror, and human sacrifice. Bodies were burned, identities were erased, reality itself was fractured and reassembled according to new rules that no one fully understood. The pioneers, projectionists, performers, editors, entrepreneurs paid with their sanity, their health, sometimes their lives, to birth a medium that would reshape human consciousness. We inherited their nightmares along with their dreams. Every film we watch contains echoes of those early horrors. The flicker rate that once induced seizures, the editing techniques that first broke time apart, the star system that still cannibalizes identity. Cinema taught us to see differently, but the lesson came at tremendous cost. The ghosts are still there, trapped in the celluloid, waiting in the spaces between frames, reminding us that some inventions arrive not as gifts but as hauntings, beautiful, terrible, and impossible to undo.